My next guest is a renowned psychologist, author, and creator of generative change work. He travels the world sharing his knowledge and expertise. Dr. Stephen Gilligan, welcome to the show.
Maritza, hi, great to be here.
So, first of all, tell us a bit about what it actually is that you do.
Well, I have been working over the past 40 years to develop different forms of what we might call generative change or creative change. And what we look to do in the work is help people get into their very best possible states so that whatever kind of life that they want to create for themselves, that they're capable of doing so. It's based on this sort of core simple idea that life doesn't just happen to you, it's something that you are actively creating. So if you can spend a little bit of time like an athlete would, or like an extraordinary performer would, really tuning to the nature of your state and seeing how you can improve it, then you can get really much better results in your life.
So what are some of the key things for some listeners that might be feeling a bit kind of stuck at the moment or in a difficult situation or stressed? What would be some starting points?
Well, starting points, for example, we call in terms of getting into a creative state. There's three basic positive connections that you need to establish. The first is you need a positive intention. So this question of what is it that you want to create in the world is a simple one, obviously, but it's of extraordinary importance. Most of the time when people are in stress or they're stuck in a problem, they lose track of a connection to a positive intention. That's one. Second, we do a lot of work in what's called mind-body centering, which is how to sort of drop your awareness into your body so that you can be relaxed, open, well-focused, not under the influence of a lot of jabber, if you will, and that you can listen to your body. That's the second connection. The third basic positive connection is what we call positive resources. That when you're at your best, you feel connected to a community of different positive things. It could be friends, it could be teachers, it could be your pets or whatever, but that you feel that you are a part of a positive, loving community. So what we look to do practically is to get those three positive connections, intention, centering, and positive resources all lined up before you trust yourself to think or act.
So what are some of the common mistakes that people make when they're in perhaps high levels of stress that maybe kind of keep that cycle going?
They try to solve it in their head. They try to understand it. They just keep trying to do the same old. And, the old definition of insanity is keep trying the same mistakes and expecting a different result. So what's really important is to have this capacity throughout the day to sense how to be able to let go, to take a few minutes, to find a way that you can tune into your body, you can breathe, you can relax, you can let go of all that compulsive thinking that's getting you nowhere. It's actually making the problem worse.
So would that be something like, for example, mindfulness kind of thing?
Yeah, well, mindfulness is a crucial, central component of the whole thing. And, mindfulness is, in the West has become a very popular topic over the last 10 years. I would offer a simple practical definition. It's this way to get into this non-reactive, subtle field of open awareness that has no content. In other words, you're just sitting and open and you're tuning. And unless that sound too esoteric or just sort of far-fetched, I was just watching an interview with a American football player, the other night. The quarterback young guy who's just done extraordinary things. He's small. He wasn't expected to do much, and now he's up for the most valuable player. And they showed him before the game. He's like off by himself, and he takes a walk on the field, while the rest of the players are warming up, and he's looking for a quiet place. Whereas he says he just lets everything go, and he opens up to this place of just relaxed openness where he can sense at a very subtle level all the things that he's going to do during that game that will allow him to be at his best. So these skills are available to each and every person.
And I think it's interesting that nowadays we're living in a kind of 24/7 society. So, if people aren't checking their internet, they're tweeting or they're on Facebook or any other social media, and it's almost like where maybe in the old days, if you like to call it that, you would come home perhaps, or you wouldn't have to constantly check your emails. There was time where you could have that downtime. Do you think that's had an effect on people as well?
Absolutely. I think it's one of major reasons that are blocking creative performance, that are blocking good health, that are blocking happiness, that are blocking the capacity to heal. This notion of stress, psychologically it's called the orienting response. And the orienting response is wired into every mammal. I put my dog out on the leash under the tree here, and I like to watch him. She's a very sweet dog, and for about the first 5 or 10 minutes, every little noise, she's reacting to it. The car goes by, and she's looking over there. The chickens next door make their sound. She's looking over there, and after about 5 or 10 minutes, I think she realizes, nothing really new that I have to pay attention to. She takes a deep breath, and her head goes down, and she goes into a relaxation state. The orienting response, which is basically a response to any unexpected or novel stimuli, puts you into this high arousal, narrow focus state where your mind is organized around the question, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? This is designed in nature to last about 5 or 10 minutes. Human beings have figured out a way to be in it 24/7. And this inability to turn the orienting response off is what we practically call stress. And it's got terrible effects on everything. For example, the orienting response is one of the two main defense systems in the organism, the other being the immune system. So the immune system is sort of the background system that is keeping your body in a state of wholeness. When you're in the orienting response, your immune system is suppressed. And that's why we say stress can cause illness, because during that time, you're not regenerating, you're not replenishing, there's no new information, there's no restoration of your system.
And the best way to get out of the stress response, I guess, point one would be to kind of acknowledge and recognize that it's happening. Because a lot of people can just go through life and it's just there, it just becomes almost normalized. It
becomes almost normal. And I think when we're in that state, you're talking about mindfulness, that's the first casualty of stress. We're no longer in any sort of self-awareness. So what I do with my clients, and certainly what I do with myself, is at the very least have multiple points during the day where people can check on their state and be able to move into this, even for 1 or 2 minutes, this state of centered awareness. And again, lest people think that it's just some esoteric state, this is what high-level performers do. This is what allows creative performers to excel, to enjoy what they're doing, and to be in a creative state. If you cannot relax, you cannot be creative. If you cannot relax, you will not have good health. if you cannot relax, you won't be happy. So it's kind of a central starting point for all of the generative change work.
So if people wanted to practice, I know it sounds weird saying practice relaxation, but what would the easiest way for them to do that be? As in, do you have specific things that you do to center yourself?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think the word practice is precisely the important word. I mean, I hope all mothers would tell their children, honey, you're only as good as your practices. You know, that whatever you're practicing, you could be practicing complaining. You could be practicing worrying. You could be practicing being bored. So this state of centering is a practice. And there's lots of ways to do it. I mean, we do it some through just I've done a lot of training in martial arts and then Aikido, where you train how to sit, how to sit up straight, how to just do basic breathing, how to let go, how to breathe your mind through your body, how to open up to a space of curiosity, so forth and so on. But there's a lot of different ways. For some people, that isn't their best way. Some people need to move. So, go for a walk. People like Charles Darwin, said whenever he hit a stuck point in his work, he would go for a walk in his garden. And he would have this practice of carrying stones. And he would say, depending on how big the problem was, he would carry different weights of stones. So he would say to himself, this is a 2-stone problem. So he would take a slow walk in his garden, sort of just rhythmically holding the stones in his hand. And this is what in creativity research, that's called the incubation period, where you need to take a break from the problem to let go of all the stressful attempts to solve the problem, to open up the creative part of your mind, to give you some new solutions or some new possibilities. So when I work with clients, what I'm emphasizing is A, you need to find a practice of centering, and B, there's a lot of ways to do that. I'm going to explore with you what ways really work best for you.
So I suppose everyone can try different ways, and it doesn't need to kind of cost money. It is as simple as maybe going for a walk in the park, or maybe just sitting, turning off the TV, turning off the mobile phone, and just taking a few minutes out for yourself.
Yeah, I think it really starts with taking off, letting go of all the ways that we use that we think are going to help us relax. Because people, you say, why do you watch TV? They say, well, I'm just trying to relax. But people generally do not feel refreshed or replenished after TV. So we have to realize that the ways that we're using for downtime to be able to take a break actually are keeping us in a stressful state. And then we're looking to find what ways can we get into that state of well-being. And, you mentioned about money. I mean, I always ask, individuals and I ask in groups that I'm teaching, when you need to get back to yourself, what do you do? And, people raise their hand and people say, I go for a walk, I listen to music, I meditate, I go for a swim, I play with my dog. And you say, if you listen, virtually every one of those practices cost nothing. They're no cost or low cost. They say that the most important state in your life, a state of well-being, a state of feeling at home with yourself, doesn't cost any money. They say if people realize that, our economy would be probably in even worse shape than it is already, because advertising tries to convince you if you want happiness, we can give it to you, but it's going to cost you. But when you really look at what helps people to be in a state of well-being, it's usually not connected to money.
So once someone gets into that state and they maybe practice and they get more used to it, what else would you recommend that they do to increase their sense of well-being in general?
Well, this you might think of that work in terms of two steps. The first is how to get into a state of well-being. And that's a process of emptying, if you will, or letting go, or returning, or coming back to yourself. And again, if you look at athletes, the way that they are before a big match is that they got their headphones on, and that's what they're doing, is they're emptying, coming back to that state. The next part of it is, as I was mentioning earlier, is that setting a positive intention. Once you're in this state of really good connection, the question is, how can I make positive use of this to create something positive in my life? So we spend a lot of time on how to set simple, positive intentions. And then the next part after that is acting, is that sensing what can I do specifically that will allow me to realize this important goal in my life. So the generative change, or the coaching work that we do, really emphasizes those different elements of it. But it's really a question of, what do you want? And then the question is, how can you ask that in a state where you can get it? Because if you're in a stress state, your system is shut down. Your all you can do is rearrange the chairs on the Titanic. You're basically, sometimes they say you're stuck inside the box. You're only going to get more of the same. And there's just so much research in so many different areas that show this, that in order to create anything new, you have to first let go of your stressful state. And now you're in business. Now you're open for business, if you will.
So if you had one piece of information to leave the listeners with today, or one tip, what would it be?
You need to bring your mind through your body and into the world. Most of the practice, if you look at other, non-human mammals, or if you look at children, their mind and their body are totally integrated. It's one of the beautiful things about young children, that everything in their consciousness is embodied. We have developed this astonishing miracle of being able to step outside of time, to intellectually think, to ponder things. But unfortunately, in all of our modern practices and our education, keep our mind separate from an embodied sense that's present in the world. So like an athlete, or like a musician, or like any creative performer, you say, breathe your mind into your body and through your body and into the world, and good things will happen in your life. So I've got, my most recent book is called Generative Trance. It's actually, it's by a Welsh publisher. But you can also look at my website, which is StephenGilligan.com. I think you get a lot of resources there about some of the specifics about how to do that.
Fantastic. You took my next question from me. That's great.
Yeah.
So StephenGilligan.com is the website. Lots of resources on there. Your books, you've written quite a few books, so I'm guessing they're all available online.
That's right. Yeah. Amazon's usually the best way to go these days.
Fantastic. Well, Dr. Stephen Gilligan, thank you very much.
Maritza, you're welcome.